Hi, I'm Sabriye, Managing Partner at EnsoDX. Last week, OpenAI unveiled AgentKit at their third developer days. And while the ChatGPT as a platform announcement sparked debate, the real implementation opportunity lies in what AgentKit enables. And this is building reliable agentic systems that actually integrate with your existing platforms. Headlines are calling it the Zapier or N810 killer, but having explored the initial release, that misses the point entirely because AgentKit isn't competing with workflow automation. It's addressing a different challenge you're likely facing, and it is how do you add intelligent contextual AI capabilities to your digital experience platforms without rebuilding everything or facing scalability issues. In this video, we're taking a practical approach. We'll show you how AgentKit's three components, Agent Builder, Widget Studio, and ChatKit work together, but more importantly, we'll demonstrate a complete integration into a real .NET Core implementation on a Sitefinity website. ChatKit describes itself as a batteries-included framework for building high-quality AI-powered chat experiences. It's React-based, but promises framework-agnostic integration. That's a claim worth testing. So we're going to build an agent using Agent Builder's visual workflow, design it in Widget Studio, and integrate it via ChatKit into a Sitefinity.NET Core site. No vendor demo stopping short of actually deploying it, but a real A to Z implementation to see what actually works and where the complexity lies. So let's dive in. When you go to platformopenai.com, you'll most likely see the Build with AgentKit banner prominently on the landing page. And when looking at the sidebar, you will notice the section Agents with Build and Deploy options. Let's start with Build Agents and open Agent Builder. Create a workflow. You start on an almost blank canvas where you can drag and drop different building blocks called nodes. At the very beginning, you have a start node and an empty My Agent workflow. The agent node allows you to add an AI instance with instructions and options to choose various models. You can add tool calling and define output format to either freeform, structured JSON, or widgets. On the left sidebar, you have various nodes to complete your workflow. The end node allows you to set the structured output for the workflow by adding a custom schema. You have the sticky node to add some comments without affecting the workflow execution. While the list of available nodes are not nearly as complete as, for example, in N8N, the three available tools are certainly powerful ones. File Search node, it allows you to quickly add a vector store for retrieval of data. The stores are defined in your project storage section, where you can get the vector store ID and set it in the File Search node. The File Search includes a limited query option for simplified RAG. The Guardrails node allows you to run moderation and quickly check for personal identifiable information, attempt at jailbreaking, or implement moderation with various pre-selected options that provide a quick way to guarantee a first level of safety. A certainly welcome node in the tools arsenal is the MCP node. This allows you to connect your agent to a wide range of model context protocol servers. While the list of approved servers is rather limited, it does have an option to manually add a server. Within the logic section, you'll find three useful nodes: if else to allow for branching your workflow, while to execute a branch while a certain condition is valid, and user approval that ensures the human in the loop step is easily added into the workflow. The node section is complemented by a smart transform node that can transform data by either custom expressions or providing object schema. And lastly, a set state node that allows you to assign values to variables. All in all, OpenAI kept the list of nodes purposefully uncluttered and focused to provide core features and aim at intuitively building workflows for non-technical people while still providing powerful features. Once ready, we can instantly preview our workflow within the chat interface, and when satisfied with the result, click on Publish. The interesting option we've skipped over is, of course, code. The Get Code option provides us with two options: to use ChatKit to deploy our application or to use Agents SDK. Please note that the MCP server node is not available in combination with the Agent SDK yet. In today's video, we want to use ChatKit to seamlessly embed our new agent as a widget, so to speak, without the need of fully implementing the SDK and writing all the low-level code. So let's dive into the ChatKit. When opening the link to the quick start, we notice that we have Python and React examples available, but there is a JavaScript SDK available via GitHub. The key element in ChatKit is an HTML web component with the ChatKit JS script, which we'll have to load on our ASP.NET Core web application, and additionally we'll have to take care of generation a client token for our user session. So before we dive into the code implementation, let's quickly jump back in the agent builder and create a sample workflow which we'll use in this demo. Okay, so we're back in the agent builder. We'll create a simple agent that tells the user the current weather of a given city and then use the widget to display this nicely to the user. We're okay with the start node. Normally we'd include the guardrails node to sanitize and validate the user query, but for all intents of this demo, let's continue straight with the agent node. For the instructions, we want to tell the agent to look for a city name and then return back the current weather. We want to give the weather forecast in either Celsius or Fahrenheit, depending on where the city is. We then choose the appropriate model. It defaults to GPT-5, but given how small and straightforward our workflow is, we can down to GPT-5 Mini. From our initial testing, when attempting to do multiple things in one agent, for example, find the current weather, structure it, and output it in a widget, it's best to split this into two agents when going for the GPT Nano model. For tools, we can write a function, or if we don't want to write any code in here, do a simple web search. We can limit the websites to searching, and in our case, just whitelist weather.com, which should be sufficient to get the current weather. Let's leave the output format to text at first and run a preview to see if our agent is producing any information. And in the chat window, prompt it for Amsterdam. Okay, great. It managed to look up the weather information and provide it back for Amsterdam. Let's go back to the agent properties and set verbosity to low, summary to null, and sources turned off. Instead of a textual response, AgentKit can use prebuilt widgets to display rich snippets as well. So let's change our output format from text to widget. Click on Add Widget. This allows us to either create or upload a previously created widget. So let's create one in Widget Studio. In Widget Studio, you can craft your own widget by prompting or choose one of the options from the sidebar. Let's select a ready-made widget from the gallery. We choose the weather card and select Open in Widget Editor. We don't want to mess with different images at this point, so let's remove line 9 from the widget and then choose Download. Now that we have our widget, let's jump back to the app builder, select Upload and choose our widget. The preview should look exactly like it did on the Widget Studio. With all this done, let's do one final preview. We ask again for the weather in Amsterdam, and the output now shows in the widget. Perfect. Let's click on Publish to save our widget, provide a name for the workflow, and hit Publish. After a couple of seconds, the pop-up will show with the ChatKit information. To embed the widget in ChatKit on your own website, all we need to do is to copy the workflow ID. Now let's bring that AI agent into the Sitefinity.NET Core application. We developed a custom widget designed to embed any OpenAI agent workflow directly into a Sitefinity.NET Core site. In Visual Studio, let's have a quick look at the custom ChatKit widget, which is a very simple and standard Sitefinity.NET Core widget. We have an entity for our widget where we define all the properties we want to set from the widget designer. In our case, we need the property for the OpenAI workflow ID. We also have an optional CSS class property for styling purposes and the view selector. Then we need the ChatKit view model class where we include the fields we will use in the view. And the view component. This is where we define the Sitefinity widget, populate the view model and pass it to the view. And in the view, we are using the properties from the view model. So far, it is a standard and simple Sitefinity widget. We're going to embed the OpenAI ChatKit component using its specific tag. We set the workflow ID from our view model to tell ChatKit which AI agent to load. And our widget is now ready and we can drag it on a Sitefinity page. We have a page which we have created for this purpose. Let's open it for edit. and drag the ChatKit widget on the page. In the widget designer, we see all the properties we defined in the entity. Let's set the workflow ID, save and publish. On the front end, the chat interface loads, and we have it also returning results in the widget template we used in the OpenAI Agent Builder. So that's great, but what happens behind the scenes? Let's go back to Visual Studio and have a look. There is a controller that handles all the API calls to OpenAI. When a visitor interacts with the chat, the controller securely creates a session and talks to the OpenAI agent using the workflow ID we set in the widget designer. Additionally, AgentKit requires you to store the OpenAI API key depending on your setup, local or hosted. You can use either user secrets, IES environment variables, or Azure Key Vault. For an in-depth explanation on how to set this up, request a copy of our widget, which includes the in-depth architecture and configuration guides. On the front end, a TypeScript dynamically loads the OpenAI ChatKit library, finds all the chat components on the page, and initializes them with the right workflow info from the backend. This script handles sending messages, receiving responses, and updating the chat interface in real time. Additionally, constants and options control things like API endpoint URLs, cookie settings, and retry policies, so the widget behaves reliably and configurable. This workflow means you can build almost any kind of AI-powered conversational agent with OpenAI's intuitive builder, then use the Sitefinity widget to embed it into your website without the need for custom coding. If you would like this widget for your Sitefinity project, click on the link in the description below. And that's it. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching, and until next time.